Hello, and welcome to the Good Girls Get Rich podcast. I'm your host, Karen Yankovich, and today's topic is, I think, a fun one. And I want to kind of shift the narrative a little bit. And the narrative that we're shifting a little bit is on the term the gig economy. And I know maybe when you think of the gig economy, you probably think of things like Uber drivers or Instacart shoppers, and that is for sure the gig economy, right? I know that has exploded. It's certainly exploded during COVID, all the shoppers and all that stuff. And honestly, it's a great business. It's a great business. There's I have nieces and nephews that did that kind of stuff through college, right? Because they were able to do it on their schedule around their classes, and they did really well. They made some really good money doing that. But I want to shift the narrative a little bit around what the gig economy looks like, because the same concept that goes into creating your own hours as an Uber driver goes into creating your own hours as a freelance writer or an independent consultant or a graphic designer or a virtual assistant or a social media manager or a PR specialist or a course creator or event planner, SEO specialist, copywriter, all those things, right? All of those things can also be wrapped into the concept of the gig economy. And I want you to think about that for a second, because so many people, from the conversations that I'm having, they think it's corporate or full-time entrepreneur, right? And that's a thing, right? That's a thing. Most entrepreneurs I know work way too many hours, probably more hours than they worked when they were in corporate. But that doesn't mean it's the only thing. And there are ways, if we shift our mindset a little bit around how we look at our career, our next chapter, our next, whatever's next for us, if we look at it as something that is a gig for us, even if we want to show up as the CEO, and even if we want to have staff and support, and we want to, me, I want there to be more wealthy women on the planet, right? So if you want to just work a couple hours as a copywriter, you can absolutely do that. If you want to have a 7-figure copywriting business, you can still do that, and it still can be considered kind of like part of the gig economy. Right. And I want you to think about it like that, because to me, that makes it feel a little bit less overwhelming. Right. And maybe you can understand what I'm talking about that. Right. The gig economy is exploding. Right. It's exploding. And and people that are in corporations are having a hard time finding employees because everybody wants to work a gig. Right. So you can be creating your own version of a gig for yourself. Right. However, that doesn't mean that like with Uber, they're dropping the clients in your lap, right? That's not necessarily, well, let me take that step back a second. They're dropping the clients in your back, but also you get ratings, you get reviews, your income depends on those rating and reviews, right? So there is still a little bit of personal branding that needs to happen, even for things like Instacart shoppers and Uber drivers. So I want to talk about that, thinking about how your personal branding would evolve in this gig economy, that exploding massive gig economy that we have in front of us, as somebody who is focusing more as an entrepreneur. Okay, so we're going to talk about some LinkedIn branding tips in this show. We're going to talk about how do you want to position yourself. We're going to talk about how to secure some of those higher paying opportunities. We're flipping the funnel around here, because I want you to be using these strategies to build long-term wealth, not just a couple bucks here and there. Okay, so let's talk for a second about what the gig economy is. Okay. There's an absolute rise in independent consultants, and especially women. I'm reading a book right now. I'll link it in the show notes. I'm reading a book right now, and it talks about the fact that, yes, there's an income gap between women and men, but there's also an income gap between women that are moms and women that are not moms. And I'm saying this because meaning that women that are moms are making a whole lot less money. And comparatively, that income gap is wider than the income gap between just men and women in general. So I think that could go away. I think we can eliminate income gaps if we focus on things like our personal brand, higher ticket opportunities, and creating a business that allows us to work around what our personal priorities are. And if that means that you've got kids, that's great. If you don't have kids, maybe your personal priorities are, I want to work from Italy for a month. I want to take care of my parents, or, I only want to work 6 hours a week, whatever that is, right? Whatever your personal priorities are, can you can build a business around that, and this gig concept can help you do that. Right? It can help you do that. So if you're experiencing either of those wage gaps, whether you're experiencing the wage gap that men are making more money for you for the same job, or whether you're experiencing the gap that women without children are making more money than you for those same jobs, this concept here is designed to help you eliminate that gap, because I think we can there's a rise, and I am here to support you to be bringing in as much cash as you possibly can. And like I said earlier, traditional employment is changing, right? It's changing, and it does not mean, as an employee, and I have nothing against employees, right? I'm here to support you as an entrepreneur, right? So of course I have those statistics in my head, but as an employee, you get a raise every year, maybe, right? 2%, 3%, 4%, 6%, whatever that is, right? As an entrepreneur, the sky's the limit, right? The sky's the limit. So we want to create, as you're stepping into this next chapter, as a part of this gig economy, you want to remember that you can still focus on the big opportunities. And that is why the brand of your LinkedIn profile, and the personal brand you create around that is crucial. It's crucial because the landscape is competitive, right? There's a lot of other people that do what you do, which is why if we've talked, that my question is always, what makes you different? What makes you different than other people that do what you do? How can we help you stand out from the crowd? Because that makes you more, the more specific your niche, the more money you're going to make. It's just the way business works, right? So you want to make sure that you're creating a brand on LinkedIn that allows you to stand out, that it's magnetic, right? You can still create that magnetic profile and that magnetic brand, because that allows you to command higher rates. Okay. And LinkedIn, as the professional networking platform, is essential for building that credibility and that trust in the space of this gig economy, because now you're, again, if you're driving for Uber, you've got the brand of Uber that represents you. But if you are stepping into this with your own gigs, then you've got to create that credibility. You've got to create that trust. And that's why we focus so much on PR in our She's Linked Up Accelerator program and all the work that we're doing. By the way, if we have not talked yet about She's Linked Up, definitely grab it. Well, there's links below this. Grab a spot on my calendar, because we've got some really sweet, we've made some changes to it, and we've got some really sweet offers for you. All right. So moving on, let's just focus this as an independent consultant, because all of those things that I mentioned earlier, right, they all kind of roll up to independent consulting. So the first thing you want to do is identify your niche and identify your unique selling proposition, unique value proposition, right? So you want to think about what that is. You want to use things like LinkedIn skills section to be listing the skills you want to be known for, the ones that make you stand out from just consultants, right? You want to maybe join some LinkedIn groups that are associated with your unique value proposition and with your niche, right? Because you want to make sure that you want to be diving deep into that niche. You want to go deep, not wide, because the deeper you go, the more money you're going to make. Okay. So you want to be articulating that unique value proposition with your LinkedIn headline, in your LinkedIn About section, in your LinkedIn Experience sections, right? You want to make that stand out from everyone else. And it doesn't mean, like, and I've said this before on the show, so maybe you've heard me say this, but this podcast you're listening to right now is called Good Girls Get Rich. My training program that I have been running for 5-6 years now is called the She's Linked Up Accelerator program. I would say half of my private clients are men. Okay. So it doesn't mean that I can't work with men just because my marketing focus is on women. I focus on women because I think women are underrepresented with this work. And I want to make sure that women are getting a piece of the pie, right? I don't look at that wage gap as a bummer. I look at that wage gap as an opportunity to grab a piece of that. I want a piece of that pie. I want some of that money, right? So when I'm asking you to create that unique value proposition, I'm not asking you to give up opportunities. I'm asking you to be known for something very specific. Okay. And then from there, you want to create the story behind that. Why are you different than everyone else? What makes you want to stand out for what you stand up for? For me, for example, there's a lot of people that teach LinkedIn, right? I have a lot of competitors that do this work and the PR stuff. But for me, if you go all the way back to episode one of the show, and if you've not listened to that yet, you probably should. It's a little cringy for me to listen to, but I talk about the fact that I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and women didn't have the kind of opportunities women have now. I had to unlearn so many habits. And, you know, and as I watched over the decades, women rising, and women are rising, there's no doubt about that, but our incomes are still not rising, right? That's my story. That's the story. And I have specific memories in my personal life of times that I needed to do something that I didn't have the money for. I'm like, that is never happening again. And I don't want that to happen for you either, right? So that's kind of my brand story, right? So you want to be doing that. You want to be creating a brand story that resonates with your potential clients, right? What's the journey? What challenges have you overcome, right? Talk about those kinds of things in your about section on your LinkedIn profile, because that is what is going to make you stand out from other people that do the same gig that you do, right? And you want to be chosen. You want to be chosen, so you have to stand out, right? So thinking about what makes you different and incorporating that brand as a story, that unique value proposition as a story in your profile makes it interesting, right? It makes it interesting. Nobody really wants to hear all the left brain certifications and stuff that you have. They want to know why you got those certifications, right? Because that's who they're hiring, the person that had the passion to do this, not just the person with the certifications. So you want to optimize your LinkedIn profile for that. And then obviously too, that optimizes it for visibility. Let's say you're a financial coach, right? And you want to get speaking engagements. If you just put on there on your LinkedIn, I'm a coach, I help people with money, blah, 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 you're going to get some speaking, especially if you put in there that you're a speaker, you'll maybe hopefully get some opportunities there. We're going to make this magnetic, remember. But if you're like, no, I'm a wealth coach for women, there are people looking for specifically what you do. If there's a women's conference, they're going to be looking for you. They're going to be using those search words on LinkedIn to find you, right? So you're going to stand out. And when I there was no just about this because it was a lot of work, but when I ran a social media agency, and somebody said, hey, I need a speaker for social media, I'm grateful that 100 people would say, hey, call Karen, reach out to Karen. But when I started to niche into LinkedIn, and specifically LinkedIn for women, now when there's a women's conference where they want a LinkedIn speaker, now, my name is put out there. 100 people ask for me. My name's not in there with 100 other names, right? And that first example, my name was in there with 100 other names. Now I have 100 people just saying, call Karen, right? So you want to optimize your LinkedIn profile for that visibility. So when people are searching very specifically for what you do, you come up. Right? You come up. You can use, your profile picture in this, right? If you want to be speaking, make sure you have a microphone in your hand, right? Your about section, your experience sections, use LinkedIn's featured section, right? To showcase the kinds of work that you're doing in that specific niche, case studies, testimonials, videos, right? And be really consistent across all the sections on LinkedIn so people understand what you stand for. It doesn't, and here's the deal, it's not Mount Rushmore. You can change it, right? Like, it's not like it's etched in stone. You can change it if you shift what you're doing. And you might even, like, sometimes I shift my profile a couple times a year, right? Depending on what I'm focusing on in my business, depending on what market I'm focusing on. So you can shift it, but you want to make sure it's consistent and not chaotic, because you want people to know exactly who you are and what you stand for. And what this does, it starts to position you for those higher paying opportunities. It starts to position you because, think about this. A doctor makes $1, a surgeon makes $10, a heart surgeon makes $100, right? A left ventricle specialist makes $1,000. So as you start to specialize, as you start to establish yourself as a thought leader and as an expert on LinkedIn, you're creating an opportunities for more wealth, for higher ticket contracts. Okay. So when, as you're doing this and as you're really shining a light very specifically on what you focus on in things like your LinkedIn posts and your articles and videos, you're demonstrating that expertise that makes you stand out from everybody else that does what you do in the gig that you do. Right. So, you also want to be, again, you're positioning yourself now for those higher paying opportunities. So we want to be connecting with the most important people in the world that you want to be working in, right? Connect with the CEOs, connect with the top people in your industry. Position yourself as if you're peers with the most influential people in your industry, because you are, right? But nobody's going to think you're bigger or better than you say you are. So we have to step into that. And these are some of the things we're really good at helping you with. If I say these things and you're getting a little bit, I'm not one of the best top people in my industries, I got you. I got you. This is what we're really good at helping people with. Because then what you really want to do is you want to have a premium pricing opportunity. And, when in our She's Linked Up Accelerator program, in the very first thing you get from us is a training on creating a high ticket opportunity. That training alone probably pays 3 times for this training because we've really revised the pricing on our program. And I say that because when you're having these conversations at this high level with the CEOs, they might not want your $25 course. They're going to want, no, how do I get your brain? So you need to have a premium offer for that. And it can be custom. It doesn't have to be a suite of services. It doesn't have to be, 3 levels of something. It can be, hey, I've got this VIP offering. We custom design it to suit you, what your needs are. And it starts at $5,000 or $10,000 or $1 million, whatever it is. Again, we teach you very specifically how to do that, but you want to have that premium offer, so that when the conversation comes up, you're ready for it. You're ready for it. You don't have to market it. You just have to have it ready. You have to start thinking like that high earning person in this, that are the gigs that you're getting are for the higher opportunities, right? And I can think of Dee, who's our client concierge in our She's Linked Up Accelerator program, and she went through the training as well. And I remember she said that she had a conversation with somebody, another potential opportunity that she was working on, and the person, she said, I heard your voice in my head, Karen, and I just was like, add a 0 and shut your mouth. So she's like, I threw it out there, I added a 0 and I shut my mouth, and they said, okay, where do I sign? Right. And I believe she's still working with this person. So it's just about having it at the ready for when the opportunities come up. Okay. Because remember, the profile is where you're being positioned, right? If you're emailing people about these big fat opportunities, or if you're Instagram DMing people about these big fat opportunities, they don't know anything about you, right? But when you're on LinkedIn and using LinkedIn messages and DM for these kinds of things, and they can see what a rock star you are by your profile, this is where you are setting the terms for those higher ticket opportunities, the compensation for these packages that are worthy of that higher ticket price point. Okay. So you're using LinkedIn not just to find these people, but also to substantiate your value and to have the conversations right there on LinkedIn, so that when these gig opportunities come up, you are negotiating from a position of power. Okay. So you want to also then be building your network full of these high profile clients. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but you want to use things like LinkedIn's advanced search features and strategic networking, and showcasing some projects that you're working on if you can, testimonials, build that credibility, right? You want to make a magnetic strategy here, right? You want a magnetic strategy because you don't have, Instacart sending you clients. You want to create a strategy on LinkedIn that LinkedIn drops those clients in your lap, right? So not only do you want them to find you there, but it's also a place where you can continue to nurture those relationships, right? That's why you want to put regular updates on LinkedIn. That's why you want to have relevant content. Maybe you want to endorse them or engage in the content that they're engaging on, right? I feel like my hands are waving a lot today. My Italian's coming out today. But does that make sense? And here's the thing. LinkedIn, there's a lot of opportunities for the short game on LinkedIn. I think I've mentioned on the show before that I've had people that didn't know who I was in the morning and hired me for my highest ticket opportunities at 4:00 in the afternoon because they saw me posting on something and reached out to me because I made it really easy for them to do that on LinkedIn, right? But the long game, oh my gosh, the long game on LinkedIn is where the wealth building happens. It's where the wealth building happens, right? Because remember, you're building relationships now, maybe for conferences you want to speak at next year, right? You want to maybe even start to diversify your income streams by having conversations on LinkedIn. Like the biggest tip I can give you today is have conversations on LinkedIn. The people that have the most success in the work that I do are the people that are having conversations without necessarily knowing where that conversation is going, right? Sometimes the conversation is just, hey, here's what I do. Who do you know? But sometimes other opportunities come from that, right? Other opportunities come up from that. Maybe you're jumping into, you're hosting some webinars or some LinkedIn events, right? Or, maybe you're doing some LinkedIn learning courses. LinkedIn as the hub of your world in this gig economy is all you need. You almost don't even need a website. And I don't say that lightly. Okay. I don't say that lightly. A lot of the stuff we're talking about here today, and a lot of the stuff I talk about in general on this show, is identity shifting, right? I'm saying, I want you to step into this gig economy, into your next chapter as a gig economy worker, as somebody who is getting contract after contract after contract, big, fat, juicy contract after contract after contract, as if you're worthy of being peers with the most influential people in your industry. I know it's there for you, right? If it's a little identity shifting maybe on your end. So not only am I asking you to shift your thinking a little bit around, first I'm asking you to shift your thinking a little bit around the gig economy. And is that really something that you can embrace and that you're leaning into with your next chapter? And then now I'm also asking you to say, and can you do it from a place of power? So many people that I speak with, and if you're watching this on video, it's a lot easier to get this concept, but they have such beautiful high ambitions, but their energy is too low. And what we need to do is raise their energy to match their ambitions and operate from that place. And that's where the magnetism comes into your strategies. Okay, so let's recap really quickly here. I believe that a lot of the work that many of us are doing can be classified as the gig economy. The gig economy is exploding right now. And I think we need to embrace that and get on that wave. Okay. The impact to the world we live in is like none other. And, I've said this a billion times. No, there's no better investment in this crazy, uncertain world we live in right now than an investment in yourself. When you know how to do this, there's always opportunity. There's always clients for you. There's always money for you. There's always income for you. You don't have to worry about getting laid off from your job and not having an income, right? And then you want to make sure that as an independent consultant, that you are still building a strong personal brand, that you are known for something very specific, and that you're positioning yourself for the highest paying opportunities on LinkedIn. And then not overlooking the long-term wealth growth strategies, right? What are the long-term opportunities on LinkedIn? There's so many. So a couple tips for you. A couple of episodes ago, this is episode 286. So episode 284, I will link to it here. If you go to KarenYankovich.com/284, we did, I think it was 5 or 8 things that you could do to your LinkedIn profile right now. So go back, listen to that episode and do those things. Start to think about this, right? That's kind of like your homework for this. Your other homework is too, if you have not yet taken our assessment, go to linkedinquiz.com or KarenYankovich.com/quiz and just get a sense of what your marketing style is. Because as you're stepping into this next chapter, as you're building wealth in this gig economy, I want you to do it from a place that feels comfortable for you, right? It's not one size fits all. And our marketing assessment is the place to start. So you know how to monetize LinkedIn from a position of where you're most comfortable, right? So KarenYankovich.com/quiz gets you there. LinkedIn quiz gets you there too, but for some reason that link doesn't always work. So I hope that this was valuable to you today. If it was, you know that I'd love for you to share this episode with your audience. Just share it. Make sure you tag me. I'm at Karen Yankovich across all social media. Use the hashtag Good Girls Get Rich. And that's how we lift each other up. I can share that with my audience then if I see it. And then I can get more eyes on you. You're getting more eyes on me. We're lifting each other up. And this is how we start to eliminate those wage gaps and we start to build more wealth in our world, because the relationships and the referrals are where the money is. And that is all happening here on this podcast and on LinkedIn and in our She's Linked Up program. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that if you liked it, you'll also leave us a quick review, or you'll make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss another episode. And I'll be back here next week with another show for you. Thank you so much for being with me today.